I will burn out. If we are doing that all day, every day, we'll burn out.
It will be a medium.
Well, I hear you. I hear you.
Right, we're now streaming live on YouTube.
Yes, I just want to get the link up so I can send it before I let other people in.
I will burn out. If we are doing that all day, every day, we'll burn out.
It will be a medium.
Well, I hear you. I hear you.
Right, we're now streaming live on YouTube.
Just checking.
Yes, I just want to get the link up so I can send it before I let other people in.
I'm hearing some feedback at my end. I don't know if this is for everyone also.
Listen, I think the feedback is coming from your microphone.
Yeah, I noticed. I'm leaving the location. How about now?
Yeah, it's much better now.
Okay. So close this door.
We're still waiting for 2 people.
Okay.
Sorry, Korede, do you have any info on where Chef Imotada, if she's
Just messaging her now.
Yes, 3 minutes gone. I just don't. And if I let everyone in, I won't be able to tell.
Yeah, we can't. Yeah, I've just been saying to everyone that we can't. We have to wait for everyone to join, because if not, we don't have a problem.
Yeah, she's on now. Chef Imita's on. Let me make her co-host. Okay, Corday, she's on now. So if
okay, fab. Thank you.
We're waiting on Sean, so hopefully Johnson.
Those that are joining late, can we get them to send donations to like an EndSARS?
Okay, Cordy, I think we should just go ahead and start. So I'm going to let everyone in and I'll be silent from now. So
okay, one second. What about if we don't have enough space in the room?
Sorry?
What about if we don't have enough space in the room for when Sean joins, or should we just risk it?
Can someone just call him and ask him how they'll take him to join? That's probably the smartest thing to do.
Why is your page not on? Hola. Just know you just went to go wear his shirt.
Cool. I think I'm going to make a start. Now. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. This is the EndSARS What Do We Do Next live video webinar call. Just to give you a brief background and introduction, my name is Korede. I will be your moderator this evening, and I can't wait to hear from our amazing panelists and speakers. I am from the EndSARS UK team. EndSARS UK is a collective of Nigerians in the British diaspora, and we are passionate about making sure that the voice of the youth in Nigeria gets heard around the world, starting with where we are in the UK. We started off by a couple of protests in London. We organised them, and we also used our platform to amplify all of the other protests that were happening in different cities around the UK. And even though the protests in Nigeria have stopped for the time being, and there's even a national lockdown in the UK, we still think it's really important to use the time that we have now to strategize and try and find some type of solutions or answers for us to work out, so that we can make Nigeria the Nigeria that it's supposed to be, with all of the potential that the country has. Without further ado, I would like to kick off our call by speaking to Oluwatosin. Oluwatosin, hi, thank you for joining us. Do you want to give a brief overview about who you are? And yeah, we'll take it from there.
Thank you for having me, Korede.
Thanks for coming.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, crystal clear.
Okay, I'm Oluwatosin Adeniji, a Nigerian, a graduate of Lautech and a citizen journalist. I cover for Sahara Reporters, Object TV, and Alien Pros. I think that should be fine.
Yeah, that's all good.
Yeah.
And could you please speak to us about your experience and what happened to you during the SARS protest and your involvement with the police?
Okay. I joined the protests October 8th in Abuja, and I joined October 8th, and I attend all the protests that happened in Abuja. I attended all the protests. I covered all the protests. So anything I say now, I'm giving the account of an eyewitness, not based on hearsay. The rate at which we were repressed in Abuja is crazy. Gunshots, water cannon, and all of that. But what happened on the 6th of November, I got a notification that led to my arrest. I got a notification that there would be a protest at National Assembly. So I said, okay, let me go and cover the protest, because I always live stream protests, ProSARS, and EndSARS protest. I said, okay, let me just go and cover this protest. I was there with the protesters in their numbers, actually. And, the officials came trying to ask, who is your leader? And the protesters answered, oh, we have no leaders. We are just here to let the government know that they are yet to meet the demands of EndSARS. Fine. EndSARS is just a metaphor for what we are demanding. Police brutality still falls under this EndSARS demands, ending culture of impunity and all of that. So they said they should leave the venue, but they were like, no, they won't leave until they are done. So it got to a point they were already leaving. Yes, they were already leaving the venue. Then reinforcements came from, I don't know, as at that point, I did not know where the reinforcements came from. Then they started shouting, arrest them. They started shooting tear gas canisters, and live bullets. Everybody started running for their lives, and I was picked alongside 5 others. So from there, we're taken to the National Assembly entrance, like the main entrance to the National Assembly. We were taken there, tortured, beaten, slap, kicks, and all of that. And I kept telling them that I'm not a protester, I'm here to cover the event. And the man was like, no, I saw you were there right from the beginning. Even if I am a protester, are you supposed to beat me or torture me if I am a protester? Then he said, no, he doesn't care. This one, Nigerian police now. So they called their van. Their van picked us from there to state CID. And from there, we were told to write our statements. I refused writing statements, and the man started hitting me like, where do you think you are? You said you don't want to write your statements without your lawyer. Who do you think you are? This one and that one. So they kept hitting me, kicking, slapping. I had to put down the statements, and immediately after the statements, we were arraigned. The CP came and gave the order that they should arraign us immediately. Then after I was giving my phone. The other guys too were giving their phones to call their lawyer or their relative that they will be taken to magistrate court who said to. We got there and we appeared before a judge, Abdulrazak Eneye is his name, and we were denied bail. And the judge gave a judgment or order that we should be remanded till January 25th, the adjourned date, and that our lawyer can reapply for bail or appeal the judgment. So they took us back. They couldn't take us to the prison that evening actually. So they took us to Gariki police station, or Gariki FCT command, I think, yes, that's the name. They took myself and 2 other guys there. Then the 3 others, they took them to Asokoro police station. The next day in the afternoon, they came to pick us and we were taken to Suleja prison. What else? And yeah, there was a case of a minor, like a small guy that was arrested with us. The guy doesn't speak English, he speaks Hausa. So they kept asking. When we got to the prison, the officials told the IPO that this guy looks underage. Are you sure he's not underage? The IPO said, no, the guy is 20 years old. They asked the guy in English. He didn't understand the language, so someone had to translate, like, how old are you in Hausa? Then he said he's 15. But the IPO insisted that this guy is 20 years old, and the guy couldn't say otherwise because he doesn't understand the language. He doesn't speak English. He doesn't understand English. So at the point of admission into our cells, you have to strip naked. If you are a female, you strip naked. A female officer will come and search you, do all the searching to see you are not carrying contraband. So when they searched, what's the name of this guy, the minor Kabiru, then the officer who went in to search him came back and told the officials, like, no, this guy is truly an underage person. But at that time, the IPO had already left, so they had no choice than to admit him into the prison. Hello?
What? Yeah, I'm here. I was just about to say it's absolutely crazy, and it's so, I guess, like, frustrating that all of that happened and you weren't even believed when you gave your account. What was the turnaround point? When did things start to change for you? But before even that, what was your experience like in the prison like? What was that?
Experience in the prison, it's not a good experience, When I got into my cell, I can only speak for my own self because I didn't go with the other guys. We were in different wing of the prison. When I got to my own cell, at first they said that because of COVID, they have two cells, awaiting trial and convicts. I was supposed to be taken to the awaiting trial cell, but they said because of COVID-19, I have to be in isolation for 14 days. So they have this cell they use for solitary confinement. They turned that solitary confinement cell to the isolation room. So I was taken there. I met two other women. There's a very small room. It has just this student size mattress and a mat. Very small, like the smallest mattress. And there's no toilets, no toilets, nothing. We're just there, the three of us. And the routine in the prison is they open the gates, they open the cells 6 a.m. in the morning for people to clean. If you have to sweep, you sweep, you do all the chores. Then in an hour, that's 7 a.m., they will lock the cells back. They will tell everybody to go back to their cells, and they will lock it. Then 9 a.m., you go out again till 6 p.m. in the evening. So if you go back to your cell 6 p.m. in the evening, you won't be able to come out until 6 a.m. in the morning. So in my own case now, my cell doesn't have a toilet or anything. So if I have to, myself or the other two ladies that were in the cell, we have to, relieve ourselves. You want to use yourself, you have to use a bowl. There's a small rubber plastic. You have to do it in that plastic and throw it through the window. And then there's a bedroom allocated to those in solitary confinement. If you want to take your bath, and if you are lucky, the previous person who used the bathroom sweep out the water. If the person doesn't sweep out the water, you have to sweep out the base water used by another person. You have to sweep it out, or you stand inside that water and have your own bath.
It's a lot. It's a lot on. But what was the turning point for you? How were you able to kind of like get out? And I guess following that, how do you think people in the diaspora can help the movement that's happening on the ground in Nigeria?
Well, I would say that I like the fact that while we were protesting, people in diaspora were also protesting with us. Even if then we had a reason to back down, seeing those in diaspora doing this inspired us, like, yes, if these people out there enjoying free things, like they are enjoying, let me say, the dividends of democracy, if they are enjoying that and still they are protesting with us, so why can't we keep protesting and keep demanding for what the government should do? So I think I appreciate that. So those in diaspora should keep organizing, and then they should support the movement on ground with materials, because I think what we need at this stage now is mass sensitization. We need to sensitize people, because, during the protest, I think there was a time in Bega, there was a time during the protest, the hoodlums thugs hired by the government came to attack us at Bega. So we need to sensitize these people. Let's improve how the quality of citizenship. These people need to know that, yes, they can call on the government, and they should know their right. That's just my point here. Yes, we need mass sensitization. So if those in diaspora can help us with materials, it will really help. And medicals, legal this thing, they should just, that's what I think. And also petitioning our officials too will help. Those in government, they should petition them.
Thank you so much for sharing, Oluwatosin.
Okay, also I want to add that we would need those in diaspora to be active on social media. Take it or leave it. Social media is a big deal. It's a big deal, and it works. And presently, social media is facing an attack in Nigeria. And if they can successfully clamp down on social media in Nigeria, then we will need those in diaspora to help us amplify our voices.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you so much, Oluwatosin. We really appreciate you joining us and sharing a really harrowing story. But we're glad you're okay now. It's great to see that you're doing well. The next speaker I would like to call on is Ayodele Shogunro. And he is going to speak to us a bit about the Nigerian constitution and kind of like how it works. And because remember that EndSARS is not just about ending SARS, it's about putting an end to bad governance, putting an end to impunity in Nigeria as well. So Ayodele, hi, welcome to the conversation. Could you please introduce yourself? So the people know who they're hearing from.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Korede. And thank you to everyone who has organized and put this event together. It's quite important that we continue the conversations around this and keep up the process of public education. My name is Ayo Sugunro. I am a lawyer by training. I am a writer and a published author by inclination. And currently I am a doctoral scholar at the Center for Human Rights in the University of Pretoria in South Africa. The experiences which Tosi has just narrated now are truly quite harrowing, and a sobering reminder that there are real world impacts on people who are out there in Nigeria, who are facing, in a sense, the direct impact of police brutality. And, sometimes we tend to over-romanticize these protests, and sometimes we tend to, get carried away with the euphoria of putting our freedom of expression out there. But I think it's also important that once in a while we remember that real people are out there suffering these things. And I am so glad that she shared these experiences, and I thank her for still holding it all together. So I want to talk about the Constitution, which is one of my favorite talking points, especially for those who follow me on social media and my articles. It's interesting that Tosin really did use the word metaphor, EndSARS as a metaphor, and I think I'll pick it up from there. Because again, we have a government that has tried as much as possible to pretend that what we are dealing with here is a case of a few bad officers, a case of we need to just fix one or two things here. Or is it this police unit that's the problem? Fine, we'll scrap this police unit and put another police unit there. And then they lean back and wonder, but we've done all these things. Why are people still on the streets? Why are people still protesting? And that's because, even if we don't articulate it as such, Nigerians understand intuitively that what we are dealing with here is not just a case of a few bad police officers. What we are dealing with here is not just a matter of swapping out one unit for another. Police brutality in Nigeria goes beyond the individual actions of the people you see on the streets. Instead, it is a representation of a deeper systemic use of violence as a tool of social control by our government. And this idea of using violence as a tool of social control is derived from an embedded colonial and military ideology. Our colonial heritage conceptualized policing as a tool of subjugation, not a tool of service. And we entrenched that idea of policing as a form of repression, control, oppression, into what is supposedly a democratic modern system of government. And so when you put these two kinds of incompatible scenarios together, you end up with the systemic dysfunction that we are currently seeing in Nigerian policing and security services. And the use of the Nigerian police as a tool of power by the elite principally manifests in two ways. The first is the way in which the police act as gatekeepers of our hegemonic norms. You know, the police, they profile, and when I say police here, I don't mean in the sense of providing a service, I mean it in the very real sense of monitoring, of observing, of policing, and targeting vulnerable Nigerians who they perceive have violated these hegemonic norms. So they look at what you wear, they look at how you dress, they look at, essentially anything that points to the fact that you could be a threat to the established power dynamics in the country. It is not arbitrary, all of these things. Instead, the police act as the frontline monitors of proper citizenship, of who is well-behaved as a citizen. And so those who are perceived to have stepped out of line, they do not need to have committed any actual criminalized conduct. All they need to have done is to step out of that value system. That's the first way. The second way in which the use of the police as a tool of manifested is in the difference in the treatment of the political elite by the police versus everyday Nigerians. And I don't need to go into this too much. We all know this by experience and observation, that when a person who is from the upper classes or from the political elite is subjected to the criminal justice system, they have preferential treatment. They have a different way of behaving. We all watched as a man fired gunshots into a crowd in Lagos, but the police say that they need a complainant before they can do anything about it. Yet, every day they arrest other people, even without any evidence of those crimes, like again what Tosin has just narrated to us. So, to address all of these issues, these deeper systemic problems, it's not just about changing laws. It's not just about, swapping out one unit for the other. What we need is an actual political and social transformation. And to do this, we need to go all the way back to constitutional level structural reforms. And that is where my topic comes in. What is a constitution? A constitution is ideally a social contract. The, concretization, the articulation of the hopes and aspirations of the people, and a sort of map for how they would achieve those aspirations. So essentially, a constitution should document where we are coming from, where we want to go, and how we want to get there. The Nigerian constitution is not like that. The Nigerian constitution has been in existence now, or at least has been in service for about over 20 years, from 1999 to now. In that time, it hasn't changed anything. It hasn't transformed anything. If anything, it has further re-entrenched the ideals or the ideology of military rule in our country. And that is how that ideology seeps out in things like police brutality. So, what do we need to do if we really want to end police brutality, not as a standalone issue, but as part of the systemic dysfunction of the Nigerian state? We need to have a new constitution. But we need to have a new constitution. It's not something that we just say casually, because part of the flaws we have in the 1999 Constitution is the fact that it violates both the process aspects of constitution making, and the content, the substantive aspects of a constitution. We have a constitution, but we do not have constitutional democracy. So that means, looking forward, what we have to do is to make sure that the next stage of organizing, of rallying around, of coming together to say we must put an end to all of this, is by making sure that any new constitutional reform agenda must toe the line, must toe the principles of constitutional democracy, both in the process of making it and in the substance of the contents of the Constitution itself. What are these process issues? First, a constitution must be legitimate. That means the process must be widely accepted as a product of society, not an imposition by a curated committee selected by the president, not an imposition by a committee of APC or PDP people, not an imposition even by the National Assembly. It must be accepted that this is our document. Two, it must be sovereign in the sense that it must be directly approved by a significant majority of Nigerians. A constitution that hasn't gone through an approval process cannot claim to be sovereign. Meaning, for example, we could have a referendum to vote on this document when it is presented. And thirdly, on this process, it must be representative. Again, every Nigerian must have the opportunity to contribute to the process directly or indirectly. Now, the Nigerian constitution right now is not legitimate. It is not sovereign. It is not representative. It is, in fact, literally just an extension of military rule because it is a military decree. And so when you have a constitution that is based in this idea that the people don't know anything, the military is fine to craft a constitution and impose it on them, then as it will always be, they would craft a constitution that favors the interests of their own, or rather of the writers of the constitution, in other words, the political elite. You cannot have a party to an agreement where there are two or more parties, but only one party constructs and designs the entire agreement, and then not expect that the other parties will not suffer for it at some point in time. And that is what is happening now. We have not been part and parcel of the fundamental law that guides our country. And so we are suffering from that absence of representation. We are suffering from that absence of sovereignty. Until we take steps to fulfill these requirements, we will keep having these kind of issues. But beyond the process, the substance also matters. Now, there are many substantive flaws in the 1999 Constitution, but I'll point out the ones that are relevant to this issue of police brutality. First, we have an over-centralization of powers in a central executive, which again is a legacy of colonial and military style of governance. Second, we have non-accountability for historical crimes in our Constitution. We literally have a provision in the Constitution that bars the judiciary from inquiring into the actions and policies and legitimacy of previous military governments from 1966 to 1999. So, meaning, even if you have evidence that these people committed crimes, sometimes over the last 60 years, there's nothing anybody's going to do about it. Three, we have non-accountability in our Constitution for the use of the powers that elected public officials have been given. Again, there is a provision in the Constitution that literally says you cannot take the government to court, basically any public official, to inquire as to the use of their powers, whether it is in conformity with the objectives of the Constitution itself. It's incredible, it's totally ridiculous. So when you cannot hold your own public officials accountable, then we are going to have the misuse of power, discretionary policies that favor only a particular segment of the population, a small minority in the population, the elite, would always be the order of the day. And then worse, we now have the Constitution that gives control of the armed services to the president directly without oversight from even the legislature. And to add insult to that injury, we now have a Constitution that puts a limitation on the right to life by saying that the police are free to take the life of citizens to quell an insurrection or riot. It's crazy, not in a democracy. How did all of these things get into our constitution? Because we have been excluded from the process of making it. And that is what I fight for now and going forward. We must become, or we must come together and take part in any new constitutional process. We must reject any attempt by the president or the National Assembly to simply impose a new document on us, because they will only always write it to cater for their own interests, never to address the power issues in our society, never to address the issues of inequality in our society.
I'm going to have to stop you there. I'm so sorry. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. No worries. But yeah, I think we have an understanding of the root of the issue that we have, and why we have the issue that's at hand. So thank you so much for that. If anyone has any questions for Ayodele, please feel free to mention what they are in our chat box here and in YouTube as well. So the next person I would like us to speak with is Olamide Samuel, who will provide a bit more context and as to what all of those, I guess, like constitutional elements mean in practice, and how the Nigerian army is basically funded by the West. So Olamide, over to you. Hi, if you'd like to introduce yourself just to start off with.
No problem. Thank you very much, Korede, for having me. I just want to double check that you can hear me clearly.
Yep, crystal clear.
Okay, excellent. So hi, everyone. My name is Olamide Samuel. I am an international lawyer by training, but I also have experience in national security strategy. So I obtained my PhD in national security strategy from the University of Buckingham in England. Afterwards, I have been engaged in arms control internationally, especially with regards to disarmament and non-proliferation of weapons. I think my contribution today is going to be very centered on external pressure and how we can leverage external pressure on the Nigerian government. But I would like to definitely reiterate some of the points that Ayo has made, some extremely useful points about the status of our constitution and what it means for police brutality and for government accountability within the country. As Ayo has highlighted, and he can expand on this in further discourse and further debates, our constitution is set up in a way that privileges power structures against the citizens of the country. And so we're seeing massive abuses of power by the police and by armed forces, which are actually sanctioned by the Constitution. But then again, there's an international context of international law and international norms that Nigeria has signed up to. And Nigeria can be held to account on the basis of these international laws and norms that they've signed up to. And this is where the external pressure comes in. Now, as I'm advocating the strategies for external pressure, I must note that whatever strategies I'm advocating aren't exclusive to grassroots approaches like Tosin has highlighted, or also constitutional reform like Ayo has highlighted. This is to supplement and enhance their efforts on the ground. Because, from Nigerians in the diaspora, we can't necessarily pretend to have the same sort of contextual understanding of what this oppression feels like and looks like on a day-to-day basis. And I think this was definitely, vividly described by Tosin in her account of her ordeal with the Nigerian police. So we're here to support the grassroots campaigners and the people on the ground. But this is, supposed to happen simultaneously and not take precedent over their efforts. So external pressure. Essentially, what I'm advocating for is that we hit the Nigerian government where it hurts. We've had lots of protests in London, in Geneva, in Toronto, from concerned Nigerians about, the repressive acts of the Nigerian government in recent times. And these protests have been very helpful in highlighting the ordeals of Nigerians on the global scale. And they've been able to draw a lot of attention to what is going on. We also have to understand that the global context, there's lots of crises that are happening simultaneously. And so these protests, in foreign capitals are extremely important to keep Nigeria and the issue of EndSARS prioritized in international discourse. But going further with these protests in different capitals, and when I say we should hit the Nigerian government where it hurts, what I'm advocating for essentially is a direct outreach campaign to global centers of power to stop them from facilitating Nigeria's repressive behavior. So for example, in the UK, where most of us are domiciled, and this is an EndSARS UK discussion, in the UK since 2015, the UK government has at least provided about £45 million worth of export licenses to the Nigerian government. These export licenses essentially cover the provision of arms and ammunition to the Nigerian government. In addition, the UK government has been involved in training activities, both for the police force, for the NSCDC, and for the Nigerian Army. And all of these training activities and capacity building, while these trainings are not designed to help the Nigerian government repress its people explicitly, these trainings do sustain the capacity, the surplus capacity of the Nigerian government to engage in repressive activities. So when the countries are producing and selling ammunition to the Nigerian government, they're not producing these arms so that the government would then, shoot its citizens and repress any sort of protest. They're sending these arms to Nigeria to deal with the pressing security challenges that the government should be facing. Boko Haram, for example, ISWAP, for example, but the Nigerian government, instead uses these surplus capacities to repress citizens. And so in the UK, while we are protesting on the streets and in front of the embassy, we should also be reaching out to the UK government directly, especially those portions of the UK government that are concerned with permitting the export of arms to Nigeria. But not only the UK government, because there's many other governments that are also exporting arms to Nigeria. For example, the CNN report that came out earlier today in its visual investigations highlighted Serbian arms and ammunition that were used in the Lekki Tollgate massacre. Now, why am I mentioning Serbia and the UK and export licenses and all this jargon? Well, Nigeria is a state party to something called the Arms Trade Treaty, which was negotiated in 2013. Nigeria is also a state party to the International Criminal Court via its signatory of the Rome Statute. And by conducting the Lekki Tollgate massacre, Nigeria violated both the ATT and the ICC Rome Statute provisions. And this is where we can actually hit them where it hurts. So on the basis of digital evidence of the Lekki massacre, Fatou Bensouda, who's the prosecutor of the ICC, made a note that actually, there's grounds for the opening of an investigation. Maybe not yet prosecution, but there's grounds for the opening of an investigation.
Sorry to interrupt, Olamide.
Yes,
Could you please tell our listeners what exactly the ICC is before you continue?
Oh, sorry. The ICC is the International Criminal Court. It's an international body that a lot of states are signed up to, mostly African, that are interested in the prosecution of war crimes and crimes against humanity when they are carried out both by state actors, but also by non-state actors within a particular territory. So that's the ICC's job. I think I'm also going to do the same clarification for the ATT. The ATT is the Arms Trade Treaty. And this international body governs the sale of arms, the production of arms, and the export of arms, export and import of arms between and among countries. Okay, so I'll go back to the ICC and Fatou Bensouda. So Fatou highlighted that the occurrence of the Lekki massacre was something that possibly had breached the Rome Statutes, and crimes against humanity had possibly occurred because the Nigerian government deliberately targeted civilians who were protesting. Now, civilians who were protesting peacefully are actually protected under international law by the ICC. And so by making that note, there's an official record that Nigeria had a high likelihood of breaking these conventions. I'm saying high likelihood and allegedly and possibly, because of the legal ramifications of this. We all know what happened, right? Now, let's go back to the UK, Serbia, and people that, export arms to Nigeria. The Arms Trade Treaty has a provision under Article 6, subsection 3, that says that a state party cannot authorize any transfer of conventional arms to a country that has directed attacks against civilian objects or civilians protected. And so there's a legal basis for Nigerians in the UK, Nigerians in Serbia, Nigerians in Canada to approach the governments there to actually tell them that if they continue exporting arms to Nigeria and to the Nigerian government, then they will be breaking international law. And this is where we can hit them where it hurts. Maybe if Nigeria sees a drought of arms and ammunition, then they might, preserve the arms that they have in their stockpiles to go and fight Boko Haram in Sambisa. I'll pause here for now. Thank you.
Thanks, Olamide. Super helpful. One thing that I know that we spoke about before, just a very quick note before we move on to our next speaker, is for the upcoming conversation that we're having on the, or not us, sorry, the House of Commons, Parliament is having the debate on the 23rd. Is there anything that we can do to make sure that we're really holding the UK to account?
Yes, I have two suggestions. The first is, if you're registered living in any particular portion of the UK, any borough, you can directly approach your MP to make them, you send them a letter and an email to make them, ask the government and also introduce questions to the House of Commons on a particular issue. You don't have to be a UK citizen. By being Nigerian, you're already a Commonwealth citizen, and if you have residence, you have the right to petition your MPs. So push them to investigate this matter further. Of specific importance is Kato Samuel, who has been pushing, other parliamentarians in this direction, and she has really sustained movement in that regard. The second is an organization called the Campaign Against Arms Trade. Now, they have already been petitioning the UK government for a number of years, questioning, the ethical or the lack of ethics that ground the UK's continued export of arms to Nigeria. And so you can reach out to the Campaign Against Arms Trade. I'll share out their links to you guys to be able to join this campaign and put pressure on the UK at least to dry up this flow of arms that are being used to kill civilians.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Olamide. We really appreciate that. So, right, moving on to our next speaker, we have Seun Kuti. Hi, Seun, how are you doing? Who will introduce himself.
I'm fine.
Good. So I know that you have some pretty big ideas about what the new Nigeria looks like. We're getting on a bit for time. So yeah, if you could just give us like your briefest summary about what you think the new Nigeria looks like going forward and what the diaspora can do to help that come about.
I think the next step towards moving forward is creating a narrative where Nigerian people can begin to achieve their full potential, in Nigeria. I think it's it's a bit appalling that there are more Nigerian doctors in the UK than the whole of Nigeria combined, and nurses. And the fact that Nigerian talent runs everything globally is due to the failure of our political system. You know, more than anything, a nation must be able to fulfill the potential of its people. You know, I mean, I always say this, but one of the truth about Nigeria is that if you are a talented historian in Nigeria, you are probably going to be called a thug and hoodlum because there are no programs to give you a proper career. The same goes for nuclear scientists and nuclear physicists and rocket scientists and any kind of advanced scientific job, especially all these high-end new technical jobs that dominate the world market today. You know, so there are many talents in Nigeria that are just laying fallow or literally being wasted. You know, and those that are not being wasted are being put to use against their own people. You know, it's either that or, as usual, we pawn our best minds off to the highest bidder, you know, internationally, and claim that as some kind of progress for the nation. You know, so I think going forward, in anything that we will plan to achieve in Nigeria today, you know, for the Nigeria of tomorrow, one of the main, how would I put it? One of the main characteristics of this so-called new Nigeria must be its ability to fulfill its people's potential. I mean, without that, number one, understanding of what the nation's commonwealth must be used for, then there's no point for us to struggle. If the reason to struggle is to believe that we can find a means to perfect oppression. And what do I mean by that? You know, because literally that's what majority of people try to do, maintain the status quo, you know, and claim that things are getting better for the people. You know, so most people and many people in the establishment simply want a system whereby people are comfortable in their suffering. You know, I think that is one of the things that characterizes the Nigerian state today. So in going forward, you know, and not to take too much time, I believe that the new Nigeria must be a place where Nigerians can fulfill their full potential. You know, that must be the end goal, you know, where there are no more special Nigerians and everybody can truly shine, you know, with their own natural, God-given or ancestor-given alternative, you know, talent, whatever your own religious beliefs are. You know. That's what I believe that we Nigerian people need to focus on, you know, in the new Nigeria. The methods to achieve that are also grounded in political participation. There's no point for us to believe that, you know, we can pressure our government or these politicians into making this government a functioning one. You know, neither can we petition their enablers. You know, neither can we petition their enablers to punish them enough to stop what is going on. I mean, the United States government, the United Nations, the UK, they know more about the happenings in Nigeria than we, the people of Nigeria. You know, they know about the genocide in OD in 1999. They know about Zaki Biam in 2003. You know, they know about all the extrajudicial killings in Nigeria. They know about how our prisons are overcrowded. You know, they know about the human rights abuses. But because Nigeria allows itself to be exploited by their corporations, they, in return, allow for our government to abuse the people of Nigeria as they see fit. You know, it's all in the name of business. I mean, a country like Venezuela, for example, will not get away with what the Nigerian government has gotten away with, you know, in the past week. You know, it will be all they are talking about right now. Everybody will want justice and things like that. So for me, I believe that we, the Nigerian people, must take our destiny into our own hands and concentrate on those strategies and plans and techniques that we can use by ourselves to give ourselves the results that we want to see. You know, I think this is what for me is more paramount than anything else. Is us believing in our own abilities and trusting in those things that we can do for ourselves. You know.
Thank you so much for sharing, Sean. We really appreciate you being here. So I would like to introduce our next speaker now. We'll be hearing from Ife Sarami from My Voice, My Future. Hi, Ife. If you could please just introduce yourself very, very quickly, your background, and then we'll get into the rest of the questions.
Great. Thank you for having me and EndSARS UK, and thank you for as well that are live. I've learned so much already. I've been writing down stuff as you were all speaking, and to go up after such a great personality, Sean Kuti, is an honor. So I'm actually going to introduce myself now. So my name is Ife Sarami. I am the founder of My Voice, My Future NGO. It's an NGO based in Nigeria that aims to educate young African future leaders on civics, on their rights, on political education, basically to raise their political consciousness. But aside from that, I currently live in the UK. I'm a practicing public relations consultant, but also have experience in policy. So I try to get my passion in empowering young African leaders through policy reform. And yeah, very happy to have the questions, Cody.
Fab, no worries. So first of all, we wanted to ask exactly how do elections in Nigeria work? We know that we're a federal state, so we have the states have their own power, but then you also have like the center of power, which is in Abuja. So if you could please describe how that works, that would be awesome.
Okay, so for those of us in the diaspora who maybe have never voted in Nigeria before, but maybe have interest in doing so, especially in the upcoming presidential and gubernatorial elections in 2023, the first thing you have to do is actually go back home and register for PVC. Unfortunately, the diaspora voting has not been enacted yet, and that's because of this has to be some constitutional reform, which takes a very long process, according to the committee that's set up by the Nigerian federal government for diaspora voting. So for now, we have to go home and vote. So first of all, you have to find out where to get your PVC, that's your permanent voters card. And there are different places to register in your local government area. So for example, let's say you live in Ikeja, there will be LGAs there whereby you can go to register for your PVC. At the registration center, you will be asked for your name, your biometrics, they'll take down your biometrics. And once that is done, you will then be given like a temporary card. Now, I have to confess here that this process can be very, very tedious, very long, very frustrating. I myself have gone through this, so I can explain firsthand that this is the longest process, but it's worthwhile because we need to actually vote. Everyone will say that in politics, it's all about numbers. You cannot, manipulate numbers. So even though it's a tasking process, it's very necessary to hear to make our voices count, basically. So yeah, so at the registration center, you'll give it a temporary card, which will show your details, basically. And then on election day, you come back and then you pick your PVC up. No, sorry, before election day, they will tell you when your PVC has been ready. It's ready to be collected. So you go to the place and you are given your temporary card. Election time comes and you pick up your PVC and your temporary card will be taken away from you. So on the voting day, you will be given instructions by those officials are there, normally NYC caucus. So they'll tell you the list of politicians that are going for elections. They'll tell you which ballot boxes are the valid ones so you don't make a mistake and it'll be an incomplete vote. That process in itself, again, is very tedious and long. So I would advise that maybe go with friends, especially for safety as well. Go with friends, maybe take a snack, maybe even take a book review because you might be there for the whole day. Voting in Nigeria is like a whole event. Roads are closed. It's a public holiday, which we all observe. So you make it an actual thing, make it a tradition. So you go and you vote. So you do your accreditation process, whereby at the polling units, the agents will give briefings about how to cast your vote properly and how to thumbprint. After that's been done, you then go into the your private station and you vote, essentially. You can hang around after to see how the votes have been counted. In our organization, My Voice, My Future, we've actually been trying to spread the message of try and stay around after you've finished voting. So you can actually document the process. You can film how things are going, so that if anything comes up in the future whereby maybe there's some discrepancy, you have evidence that, okay, wait, I was there. This is what happened. We can use that as a way of saying that, okay, if something has happened that doesn't seem right or accurate, we can say, okay, this is evidence that we were there on that day. We even have video evidence. So yeah, that's pretty much it. That's how the process works in Nigeria.
That sounds great. I just have, I guess, like two more very quick questions. In terms of, you're based here in the UK and you are working with a grassroots organisation out in Nigeria. How exactly do you manage that? And do you have any advice for anyone that wants to set up something similar?
Yes, great question. So for me, I actually started the NGO whilst I was in Nigeria during my NYC year. So I was able to go on ground and actually network with people that I knew had similar interests to me and wanted to join, volunteer, partner, sponsor. So it was me literally just putting the word out on Twitter that, hi guys, I want to start this, who's interested? And I had people messaging me back saying, okay, I would like to join. How do we do this? Apart from that as well, I joined a few groups from my NYC chats that helped me to connect with other young people on ground, because my target audience was young people. So it made sense to go to forums whereby I will find a lot of young people aggregated. But for those who maybe don't have the privilege right now to go to Nigeria and start an organization. Thank God we're in the tech era now. You can literally just send out a tweet, put a post on LinkedIn, send emails to people that you think have the same goals, ideals as you. For example, let's say you want to do a campaign against sexual violence in Nigeria. You can actually just partner up with existing organizations already doing that in Nigeria. For example, Stand to End Rape. They're doing amazing work with rehabilitating. I always have trouble with that word.
Rehabilitating.
Rehabilitating people that have gone through sexual violence. You can sponsor their programs. You can give money, you can donate, so you can even spend time volunteering with them, as opposed to you start up a whole new thing. Why not consolidate with people that are already on ground and put your efforts together? That's one tactic as well that I use when starting MVMF. I looked at other organizations that are doing a similar thing. Okay, who in Nigeria is working on sex education, sensitization, political education for young people? And I saw that through my LinkedIn, through people that I spoke to. They connect me with this person and that person connects me with that person. That's how I was able to overcome that. If you still don't have that, you can also reach out to people that are in your own network that you know are probably have more access to these contacts that you need. So you can reach out to student unions, labor unions, organizations that are similar to you that you think you can work with, or at least they will try to help you get people, mobilize people on ground to help you to achieve your cause. Those are the main ways that I would think can be useful for people.
And what do you think the diaspora can kind of do next to help?
Again, another great question. As Sean Kitty was just saying beforehand, he was talking about dreaming of a better Nigeria, and how do we even get there? It's by political participation, hence why the NGO is running. We're trying to educate people, thereby raise a political consciousness and take part in the voting process, because The people that you want to protect your interests, your life, are the ones that are sitting in the House, voting and passing laws that affect you every day. So if you don't go out there and do your research about who you're voting for, what the manifesto is, what their past has been in the House, what bills they passed or vetoed, you're essentially putting yourself at a disadvantage, because your vote is already free. It's your privilege. These politicians, these leaders are your employees. They're working for you, not them trying to lord their power on you. You gave them the power by voting them in. So you have to tell them, like, look, I voted you in now. This is the things I want done. 6 months into your office, have you made all these promises? Have you made them come to fruition? And that can't happen if you don't go and vote. So we're trying to raise a really big voters drive through our NGO. It's called the Get Your PVC Campaign 2023. I will put the link in the chat for everyone who wants to join us. We're trying to get as many young people on ground in Nigeria to vote in 2023. So how does the diaspora come in? You can come in by volunteering. Although you're in the UK, Canada, you can share the link. You can donate to the campaigns you see on ground in Nigeria that's going on, whether it's the EndSARS protest, whether it's political education campaigns, anything that you feel like will add to the dream of a better Nigeria, you can get involved. Just send them a message, the organizers, send them a message like, hey, I would like to get involved in this. What can I do from Canada? There's so much you can actually do, even just from the internet alone. As it's been said before, during the protest in Nigeria, when the diaspora actually started doing their own protest here, they got more ginger. They had more, passion to do it, because you can see that, wait, Canada is doing it. After they're doing a protest, let's get involved as well. So all of us done at the same time, it raises our attention. It gives us more visibility online. Therefore, more international organizations can actually help us as well. So yeah, the diaspora can get involved by donating, sharing accurate information about these causes. They can volunteer, as well as sponsor. We need finance. We need to finance these campaigns, these movements. It's not going to happen in one day, the better Nigeria that we seek. It's not going to happen in 100 days. It will take years. In fact, I might just have to say that some of us might not even be here to witness the better Nigeria, but we're going to put the efforts now so that our generations to come will witness it, and will be thankful that we have actually sacrificed so much to get Nigeria to where we think it should be. Yeah, that's what I think can happen.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Ife. That's great. And following from one grassroots organisation, I'm going to ask Fakria to come and speak with us. Fakria is part of FEMCO. If you guys don't know, FEMCO are the powerhouse behind the protests that happened most recently, and have done so much. So Fakria, we're so honoured to have you on the call. Thank you so much for joining us. If you could please, I guess, introduce yourself, who you are, what you do in your everyday life, and how you got involved in FEMCO. That would be.
Hi everyone. Thank you, Korede. That was very nice of you. So my name is Fakria Hashim, and I've been involved in Nigeria's socio-political issues in the past few years. So in the past 2 years, I've been involved with advocacy against gender-based violence, particularly in northern Nigeria, through Arewa Me Too, and organizing campaigning to improve response mechanisms to GBV through this campaign called North Normal, which specifically focuses on the existing laws that have not been domesticated across northern Nigeria, called the VAP Act, Violence Against Persons Prohibition Act. I joined Feminist Coalition at its inception in June. So our main aim, the reason we got together all um, 13 of us was because we wanted to push to the fore women issues across Nigeria, exploring through financing how we can improve participation of women in politics, how we can aid better response to gender-based violence by ensuring the structures are there, and that victims are protected, and that the law helps in preventing more cases. This is really the reason that we got together, and our involvement in terms of supporting the EndSARS protest was something that just happened at the very moment it did, more like an emergency response. And yeah, I mean, we did what we could support through financing, which really takes from our main objective of how we believed we could help women causes across Nigeria. Basically, the understanding that money is what directs, the movement of, politics and policy. Policies go where the money is, and so does politics. So I mean, that's how we came to be, essentially.
Fab.
Yeah.
Great. And if you guys haven't been following them on Twitter and during the 2 weeks of protesting, you guys need to catch up because we got to see all of what was going on and all of the amazing thing that you guys were doing. But we know that now the protests have stopped, and we just wanted to know since then, how have you guys been able to help and contribute towards those that actually were arrested, similar to Oluwatosin? And yeah, if you could provide some light on that, that would be awesome.
In regards to what's been happening post protests, some of the frontliners have been the legal people, right? And as much as they're not, femco, but Adetola and Mo have been at the forefront, because at this very moment, the only support that is very much required at the front lines is the legal support. And this is something that the government does, apart from trying to intimidate any further progression of something that they very much disagree with. It's also a distraction tactic. Yeah, if you guys are embroiled in legal issues, in police persecution and all of that, then you do not really have enough time to organize and think about the next steps. As we have seen in the past few weeks, so many people have been arrested. We saw Oluwatosin talk about her own experience in prison, in jail. And just today, after a few weeks of trying to bail out Iroms, it's really what the Nigerian government does, because some of the people that are very much at the front line of organizing, of even thought, right, giving some sort of direction and guidance with regards to where do we go next, have been people like Adetola, Mo, FK. They've been, they've been preoccupied with trying to get people out of jail, trying to ensure that people are safe, and all of this. And so it really leaves a small space to even think about what measures do we put in place to ensure that there are different means of protests, apart from going out in the streets, which has become very much dangerous for any young Nigerian. So I mean, there's that element of distraction, but also it's also about people, uh, just young Nigerians especially, taking initiative to explore what value, right, they're able to add in the greater scheme of things, to the betterment of just the average life of a young Nigerian person, whether it's tackling things from the election front, whether it's community sensitization from within their own spaces, their own element. So I mean, there are a lot of things that have been going on within Nigeria, but also the reason we're here today is because there's so many people that are very much curious about how they can support a lot of these initiatives that are happening in Nigeria right now. And I understand how difficult it is. It's easier to get your MPs to get involved, to get the Ministry for Africa involved here from the UK, or in the US, getting a senator from the Congress to take up Nigeria's issue on top of their heads, because that's normally what happens. You find the best person that would be able to commit from within, whether the parliament or from the Senate, and those people are able to maintain the momentum, especially on coming up with areas where they'd be able to support the processes and ensuring that issues like this do not die out. I mean, personally, yeah, personally for me, it's a bit, it's harder to be, to be involved from here in the UK, because I'm very much used to being on ground, working with communities and organizations and all of that. So it's about having to adjust to just not being physically present and exploring all of these things that are happening. I do feel these things are they're not as there's a bit of disintegration, right? Because, and this is what happens because so many people are doing so many different things. So many people are doing the bit that they can to push things forward. And so it's not like EndSARS, right? The protests where we only have one objective, and it's to end police brutality. But now it has morphed incredibly into agitations for many different things, right? To getting people, the right people, elected into political office. To sensitizing communities and young people on voter registration, to even getting young people to be part of the political process, to be to be elected in the Nigerian system. So I mean, there's so many things that are happening, but I guess the main focus here is about how do we sustain the anger that, that is sustaining the calls for ending police brutality. I mean, you need everything that you can get. You need every push. And I'm quite disappointed. Well, I'm not really disappointed because it's unsurprising with the response from other African states, because it would have been it would have been unprecedented to see any small African nation actually stand up to the Nigerian government, since the Nigerian government can't seem to, get out of their businesses. But also, it's very timely that this CNN expose came out just a few days before the UK Parliament sits to debate the issue. But we've also seen, the response from the UK hasn't been, proactive. It's been one that's just called for the government to, be accountable, take responsibility, and in a way that if you're someone from the if you're from the Nigerian government, you wouldn't be phased by it. And I guess that's what we need to focus on to ensure that something comes out of the debate, and something that deeply personally affects these politicians. If there's one thing they're afraid of, is being banned, visa banned from countries. They absolutely despise it. They feel their power is challenged, and for a cluster of people that feel untouchable, um, uh, in their impunity, it's something that they very much despise. Um, but one thing I would very much love to see is that, because what I think one thing Nigerians have seen with the organizing of organizing around the protests is an unprecedented level of accountability, right? So what I hope to see that replicated, not just in understanding just what accountability is and demanding of it from the government, but also seeing more CSOs, seeing individuals within whatever capacity are able to adopt that level of accountability, because if if that kind of transparency wasn't out there, I don't believe that the coalition itself would get that degree of support that they did. And this is something that we need to be able to replicate in different other things that we do. Because it's really about making people a part of anything that you do, right? Making them stakeholders, making them feel like they're worthy of an explanation, even when you don't owe them that level of accountability. But it's about dignifying people enough to explain yourself to them. And this is really what it is at the end of the day. One thing that I was very very much concerned about during the protests is we have a civil society space for a reason, because they're the ones that keep the government on its foot. And I complained to many of them that I did not see this expected level of activity from civil society organizations. I mean, we've seen how Amnesty had been on top of things, but beyond that, I mean, we have hundreds and hundreds of very legitimate civil society organizations in Nigeria. And one of the things that they've been facing.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Fakra, I'm going to have to wrap you up there. We still have 2 more speakers to hear from, but thank you so much for sharing and covering all of those points. I know that everyone has been so glad to hear from you. So we have 2 more speakers left. Apologies for running over everyone. We did have a bit of a late start, but we appreciate that you're still here with us. Our second to last speaker that I would like us to speak to is Adetola Onayemi. Tola, are you there? If you could open your mic, that would be great, and turn your camera on. And if you could just briefly introduce yourself, and then I'll get started on my questions.
Hello?
Tola, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Hear you. Yeah.
All right. Sorry. All right. I'm just going to, I think I'm having a power issue, so I'm just going to go like this, if that's fine.
No worries. That's fine.
All right, perfect. So I'm just going to talk through a number of things, and I've been enjoying the conversation so far. From the conversation about the more general experience of a person who has had to deal with police brutality incidents, to the constitutionality and all that. So I'll give general background, and I generally give general background because I think it helps clarify when everybody says, what can I do and how do I participate? I think this helps, right? So by background, I'm not an human rights lawyer, right? And I remember in law school, I used to make a joke that I would never go close to human rights or criminal law. I just felt like there are a lot of people doing that one, but second part to it was that it wasn't, to me, where I wanted to make the most of my mark, right? So by background, I'm an international lawyer. I focus on trade, tech, and investment. So as of today, I'm actually one of the lead negotiators for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. So basically, the assistant chief negotiator for Nigeria, which means I'm very conflicted if I'm technically taking a position very publicly about things that I'm taking a position about. That's one. But what really happened was that, and the second thing I do is help tech startups around raising capital, investment, and all that. So generally, my background has always been in trade, investment, or tech. How did I get involved in all of this? A number of things. First is I've always had strong opinions about what I think is right and wrong, and more importantly, about how I think people should participate, regardless of how they feel conflicted, right? So when the protest began, one of the first arrest cases was actually in Ogbomoso. And so what I'm going to do in the next few minutes is tell stories of critical incidents, right? And help you tell the story of how, as the legal network, or the legal head network, whatever it used to call us, we've helped to support throughout the protest process, and just trying to keep the civic space. And I think that's basically what we've done, really, because there's a constitutional right to be able to protest. It's protected very clearly in the rights to freedom of expression. It's protected very clearly in the freedom of association and assembly. And so what we've done really as lawyers is just protect that civic space in ensuring that people actually can exercise their rights without any retribution from the government or any suppression. And so basically what happened really was that at the beginning of the process was an arrest case in Ogbomoso, which is in Ogun State in Nigeria, southwest of Nigeria. And so it had happened, I think, on a Friday or Saturday. I can't, my recollection, but I tweeted timestamps, so I generally can track you using my Twitter account. But basically what happened really was that these people had gone protesting, and 3 of them had been arrested, right? Or we thought it was 3 of them that had been arrested. And what really happened after that was that we basically sent lawyers down there, right? Mostly because, one, I had the relationship with the Attorney General of the state, so I knew I could get involved to help. But the second part to it was that my friend FK was involved in it. She reached out to me and said, Tola, this people have been arrested, what can we do? Blah, blah, blah. And myself and FK is a very good friend. So of course we got lawyers down there and we started making calls to the lawyers. And then the crazy thing was that they won't even allow the lawyers into the building. Like, so the lawyers were basically at the gates, they won't even let them in, right? And that was crazy. And for that entire night, they did not let the lawyers in. They were just at the entrance of the police station till midnight, right? And so I got in call with the Attorney General of the state, explained the whole incident, and he said, listen, and I explained, listen, there is a unequivocal right to representation, right? So they should have access to their lawyers, even if you're arresting them for anything. So Of course, the next day, and he agreed entirely. He's a fantastic individual. So he agreed because he wasn't even involved in this. Was the police making an arrest, and it's just an attorney general of the state. The next day, the lawyers had access, and then we thought it was 3 persons. Then we found out it was 10. Then it was 15. Then it was 30. So basically, and that was what was crazy. The police would arrest people in bulk who were protesting, and then one wouldn't disclose who they had arrested. They would sometimes move them from one station to another station, right? And in this case, they split them between 2 stations. And then when you go there to say someone has been arrested, they'll tell you, bring the names of people that have been arrested. Now, imagine a public protest. People are just walking around and you arrest people. I was supposed to exactly know the names of the people you've arrested. And so what would happen generally is that these people will be arrested. It will be impossibly hard to track them. And then when you we'll then go to social media, try to crowdsource the name. We'll find the names. We'll take it back to the station in real time. And then the police will say, all right. So then sometimes they'll deny you legal right to access these people. Eventually, maybe you make calls, put pressure, they allow you access. What then you'll find out is that the police will then tell you things like, we're charging them for murder, for arson, for vandalism, some really crazy offenses, which didn't make sense, which were not backed by any evidence, right? And so in this Ogumosho case, for instance, what would happen was the police said murder, all kinds of things, vandalism, arson, looting, all kinds of things. And so, of course, we reached out to the Attorney General again, and then and the governor, and then they basically told the police, charge them with something explicitly or release them. And in that moment, the police released 27. So it meant you held 30 people. And let me explain also, in those 30 people they held, one of them had broken his leg. They kept him in the cell like that without medical attention. One of them had been beaten so much that his eyes had been swollen, you couldn't see his eyes anymore. And these guys were detained like that. And so by the second day, so in fact, third day, I think, because they had slept in the cell, they had been arrested Friday, Saturday. We got the first breakthroughs on Sunday, right? And these people were released from detention, 27 of them. So 3 of them, the police said they were going to charge them to court, right? We said, all right, go charge them to court. Now, we sent our lawyers to the court the next day, which was a Monday. We thought the police would actually bring a case. Guess what the police did? And this is one problem in the law. It's called the holding charge. It's unconstitutional, but the police uses it regardless. And because it's recognized in the civil procedural rules, so the holding charge basically allows the police come to the court and say, we're still investigating. We want you to give us an order to hold this person unconditionally and for an unlimited time. And the craziness with that is that the police actually can use that to hold the person for a really, really long time, because what's happening is that they're saying we're investigating. And in fact, I know of a case where this person, someone was held for almost a year using an holding charge, right? And so, and in this case, the police brought an ex parte motion. An ex parte, for those who are not lawyers, is a one-sided motion, meaning you can't even respond, right? Because the court wouldn't even recognize that you're in court because it's a one-sided motion, asking to hold these people. And so when we were thinking we're going to defend these people in court, that happened. And of course, so what that happened was that we put more pressure on the governor, on the state, and the governor then asked the Attorney General to review the files. And when they reviewed the files, there was no case, there was no body, there was no vandalism, nothing. So of course, the state then entered, the Attorney General then entered a null prosecute, which basically means we're not going to prosecute, and the people were released. And these 3 people were apparently released after several days. Maybe, I guess they spent like 5-6 days in detention. Now, that is just one classic case of what it looks like to be detained in Nigeria. And what you see is the abuse of the powers of arrest and the abuse of the powers of detention. Like, it is incredible. So I'll give another instance. In Benue State, a very incredible story. These guys are protesting. The commissioner of police comes to them and tells them, you're protesting, come ask for permission to protest. Now, by law, that's illegal, right? Because the law says you should not have to get permission to protest. These guys apparently go, 3 of them write a letter, go to submit at the Attorney General's office, at the Commissioner of Police office. Guess what this guy does? He detains them and actually charges them, right? And this is crazy because these guys went to protest and went to write a letter to ask for permission to protest, which you asked them to do, and you detain them. And this also shows the critical problem with the police state and how the chain of command is broken. The police, we got some from police service, the chairman of the Police Service Commission to call. The CP refused to release them. We got the commissioner of police of the Attorney General of the state to call, refused to release them. We got all senators called, refused to release them. Our lawyers were there, the NBA came, refused to release them, absolutely. So basically, it's like the commissioner of police of the state, almost as a government to himself, can decide to actually detain a person who actually just came to his station. No charge, no nothing. And in fact, the only reason we knew these guys were detained there was because one of them had smuggled his phone in and taken a picture of them and posted it online. That's how we could track them. Eventually, around midnight, when the governor got involved, this guy got released. And this is what you see happen consequently, where And another thing to say is, you know what, when people are arrested, you don't even know people are arrested because they're arrested, they're moved to another station. So actually tracking them, you might spend a day or two just trying to track where these people were taken to. Another thing that happened is, and so when after the Ogbomoso case happened, what basically happened was that I put out a tweet saying, if you're a lawyer anywhere in the country and you wanted to support, reach out. And in an hour, we had over 100 people sign up. And now we have about 723 volunteer lawyers on our network who actually reached out. And myself and Mo coordinate all of that. Now, I'll tell you another example. What happened in Benin? Same story, grabbed off the road, detained. And even after we got the governor to intercede and get involved and got our lawyers involved, the police were still trying to collect bribes from people to release them. So you ask yourself, how much impunity must you get to where you know the governor is involved, but you're still willing to collect bribes, right? I'll tell another story. Ugeli, these guys were same MO, scarred up the road, moved to Sapele. Now, if you know that state well, Sapele to Ugeli is almost 2 hours drive. So basically, and then to get any access to any of these people, we basically had to get a lawyer from Benin, who was another 4 hours away, to get access to them. By that time, they had been charged, they've been arraigned with all kinds of offenses, murder, all kinds of matters. And that's one thing you see the police do a lot, where they always go for the most grievous offenses. And the reason is because when they go to a judge and ask the judge to remand this person indiscriminately, when the judge sees a very incredible offense, the judge generally will say things like, I give you the right to detain this person indiscriminately. And I can tell you these stories because we're present in about 24 to 25 states, I can tell you the same stories in every state. After the 2010-20 event, the army did a raid, right? And grabbed about 500 to 700 people in Lagos. We don't even know the number. And of those 500 to 700 people, they were detained, they were handed over to the police, put in a place, not fed for days on end. And in fact, what happened is that they will come to arraign some of them in batches at the court and they will pass out, and we would have to get ambulances to get to them as quickly as possible. So they would, and then get food to them. At some point, we tried to get food to them, the police refused to allow us to give them food. That's how much the system was. And all these people without being charged, without any offenses. Eventually, we put some pressure and the Attorney General agreed to release about 253. Now I think it's about 300 and something. I have to confirm the numbers. But that's the experience you see consistently. You're filing. And so what we have had to do is apply both political and legal pressure. You're filing a fundamental human rights suit. At the same time, you're applying political pressure. I'll tell two other stories, and then I'll start going into more details of more broad issues.
Sorry, Tola. On that note, is it okay if I kind of just cut you off there, just in the interest of time? And just wanted to ask, so we can just quickly round up about what you think we can be doing from diaspora, and if you could just briefly touch on the judicial panel and what's going on there very, very quickly.
Okay, so I'll do that, but I'm just going to tell one example, and it's the Ramosola case, right? And I think it's important because of the context to it. So this guy basically put out a poster. He hadn't even gone to protest. Put out a poster saying that there is a protest somewhere. And what the police basically does is comes to his house, picks him up, moves him, and we get our lawyers to him as quickly as possible, move him from Lagos to Abuja. We get another lawyer and another lawyers to Abuja to be with him. It takes almost a day or two to track him. We eventually find where he is. We apply for bail, administrative bail. It's denied or stalled till it becomes invisible. We file for the fundamental human rights suit. They move him back to Lagos by flight. Crazy, right? Moving back to Lagos, and then we file another fundamental rights suit. Now, without telling, and all this movement, they didn't tell his family, they didn't tell the lawyers. It was all discrete movements. We just were tracking them by ourselves. Moved him back to Lagos. When they moved him back to Lagos, basically they without telling anybody, took him to court and wanted to try the same remand trick. Unfortunately, we had placed lawyers in every court. And so when he showed up, our lawyers represented immediately, and the press was also there. And the judge then said, because of press presence, I'm not going to make a judgment. Moves the case to the next day. We get 16 lawyers in the same courtroom this time, and then eventually a bail is granted. And guess what? The bail is granted for him at $1 million, right? With two sureties. One should have landed property, and one should actually deal both with taxpayers. That is very high threshold for someone who has not committed any offense, for whom there is no charge in the court of law. Now, I'll go to judicial panels. What we've seen happen is, so the function of the 2010-20 event and all the EndSARS protests, about 24, I think, of the states and the FCT have set up judicial panels of inquiry. Now, there are varying levels of transparency on the different panels of inquiry. One of the things that you see some panels of inquiry is that, and that's one of the first difficulties, was that there was still a very arduous, the responsibility still shifted a lot to the petitioner. So for instance, in one of the cases, the petitioners were told that they should bring 12 copies of a double-spaced 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 page document. That's extra cost. That's difficult for a probably not wealthy enough, not educated enough. It means you probably have to get a lawyer. And we've had to push back against those kind of requirements in different states. Another example we've seen is that we've had to then provide exact legal representation to people that are going to the panels and can't get lawyers to represent them. And the reason is very simple, is that you're finding out situations in which people are remanded. People have to make presentations before the panels, but don't have the legal legal support they need to provide that. Another thing we've tried to do is put transparency, so requesting for terms of references, tracking, and even supporting with how evidence is gathered. Because one of the things we're trying to push for is to ensure that post the cases, there actually can be a prosecution by the states. 3 things to flag about the judicial panels very quickly. One is that there's still a slight concern about what the next step looks like. So some of the judicial panels are 3 months, some of them are 6 months. The problem is that there's no clarity on what happens to the reports. Does the reports go to the government? Does it go to the Human Rights Commission, or does it go straight to the Police Service Commission? The second thing is that there's an argument about the issue of prosecution of those who are found guilty. Now, there's a side of the law that argues that due to the POPA, it's called the Public Officers Protection Act, and the Police Act, you can't directly prosecute a police officer until he's been dismissed by the police. And the second argument, there's a second side that argues that, listen, you can prosecute him because any state attorney general can prosecute him because any state attorney general can prosecute any offense. That's never been tested by the courts, and that's rather unclear. The third issue that comes up very trickily that we still need to figure out is the Human Rights Commission in Abuja does still not have a governing council. Every lawyer, what it saw, will tell you that the powers in the NHRC, in the Act, is given to the governing council and not to the NHRC executive secretary. So the question comes up of the legality or constitutionality of the powers of the NHRC. But as of today, we're participating in the process. Trying to use it as a way to fact find and trying to use it as a way to engage, because one of the pushbacks that we've had in the last few months is that we're not engaging. So as a way to engage, of basically participating, it's been a good way to hear the stories, right? And in a lot of the panels, we're insisting on transparency, that it is beamed live, but it's a good way to hear the stories. And the stories are chilling. You know, stories of people swimming in the lakes to recover their sons' bodies, stories of people being thrown down from balconies, very chilling, horrible stories. And I think that's the highlight of that, of how that's playing out. But the next step is what's unclear, but we're still participating in the process and watching how that plays out. How can people participate, and how can those in diaspora? I think it's the same way you've been doing. One is general conversations around publicizing it online, giving towards it, following the proceedings, applying international pressure, trying to understand the issue and educating other people on the issue. Because the truth is, it's a very nuanced issue. Explain to people that that EndSARS is not just a narrative of SARS, but that it covers all of police brutality. So doing that education, trying to work against the disinformation campaign, which is happening very graphically, all that is hard work that everyone can, and I say that everyone should participate. The other thing to say is that when people say things like, what does this mean? What's the impact of it? I say it's about accountability. Over the last few years, what we've seen happen is that because of the power of the political elite and of the political class and of how the state has been structured, a lot of Nigerians have actually lost touch with the country, in the sense that we've come to the point where we become our own government and we actually don't care enough about the state anymore. So it's like, I'm going to care about myself first. I don't really care about Nigeria. Whatever happens, happens. But the second side to that same conversation is this concern about what's the value of holding a state accountable that you think will not change. But I think what things like EndSARS does, and I say this very clearly, that I have never had more faith in Nigeria than I have in the last few weeks. I've seen people go out of there. I've seen people wake up at night to go bail people at 11:30. I've seen people drive 4 hours from Benin to Sapele to bail people out. I've seen people refuse money, that stipend that we put together for them to do. I've seen people go out of their way. I've seen people go at personal risk to actually stand for what they're right. I've seen people throw their privileges to the wind to defend what they think. And I think it tells you something that can galvanize not just a political organization, but also for beginning to start that process of awakening people to the fact that you should hold the government accountable. And one of that same ways, very quickly to say, is the issue of recall, which is beginning to come up, right? And I think that's one of the things we start to pivot ourselves to understand what are the legal procedures within the law, beyond even beyond protest and any form of civil disobedience, but to start to focus on things that are allowances between the law. So for instance, the recall process, which is a very tedious process if you're trying to understand it, because you have to do verifications of signature. But things like the recall process, things like pressures on senators around hearings, things like things like petitioning, all those things. I think what you have to start to do is explore all the legal constitutional process to put pressure. You might not succeed at all of them, but one thing you should be able to do is help every senator and every legislator and every elected officer know that we would hold you accountable. We would keep coming after you. We'll keep asking questions regardless of whether you think this works or this does not work. And so that's one of the things. And it's not whether the recall works or doesn't work. It is that I will keep initiating it against you. I don't think anybody wants to know that every other day and every corporate is initiated against them. And that's kind of pressure, because the truth is, it's an incentive game. It's whether to satisfy their greed and their political class or to satisfy the people. It's about who applies the most incentive. If the incentive is only from one side, then there's a problem. But if we start to awaken everyone to that reality of what is possible, then we change things. The last thing I would say on this is we're also working to institutionalize the process, right? The legal aid process. One thing we realized is that there's a big demand. There are people lost in the process. There's a guy we built out that we actually sent 12 lawyers over 3 days to Panti before we actually found this guy. And one thing we found was, and he had just been abandoned. And that's how people get lost in the system. In fact, the only reason we knew was there was because one of the guys we built out told us there's another guy in there that nobody knows about. And that's how people get lost in the system. So we're trying to institutionalize the process more permanently. Myself and some friends and a number of other goodwill have seeded some capital to us, trying to create a more structural, long-running process. And we're trying to focus on a number of things. One is bridging the congestion, getting legal aid to people that are indigent, strategic litigations that are very important to protecting the civic space, things around the idea of supporting in the judicial process and holding for accountability, and just providing general legal counsel, almost like designing an ACLU type structure for these kind of things. And I think just like I'm not an international lawyer, and I found myself trying to build this space and create an institution that ensures that it can run by itself even though I go back to my normal career. I hope that people can actually start to ask themselves that, what can I do? What am I most privileged to do at this point? And then just play the role that they're most comfortable playing. And last thing I'd say, and I say every time, is there's so much we can do. If nobody cares, who takes credit?
Thank you so much, Tola. Super, super enlightening and great to hear about what you've been doing on the ground, and shedding light on all of that. Thank you so much. So at last but no means least speaker is Imoteda from Feed Lagos. Hi Imoteda, you could please unmute yourself and quickly introduce yourself so that I can ask you a few questions.
Hi, my name is Imoteda. I'm a chef. I work out of Lagos, Nigeria. I run a couple of restaurants here. I'm a chef, I'm a feminist. I care strongly about the betterment of Nigeria. And yeah, that's the long spiel here.
Great. And so Imoteda runs an organization called Feed Lagos. Could you please provide more, I guess, like color and facts about what you guys are doing on the ground and how everything runs?
All right, so basically Feed Lagos came about from the EndSARS protest. So it's a result of some of the work we're doing at the EndSARS protest. When the protest started, I was trying to figure out how I could best help the protest. I'm not a massive speaker, but I cook. So I figured people are out there every day. I can take food to them. And I think I put out a tweet and I said, if anybody wants to donate any food to the protest, I'm going to be at Lekki, send me a message and I will collect your food and distribute it. And that's how somehow I ended up being in charge of food for the entirety of the protest. I cooked. I have 2 kitchens that run in Lekki. So I cooked from both my kitchens for the protesters. I collected food from people who were sending it in, and then people, outside the country, within the country, started sending me money like, okay, I see you're cooking. Here's a little money, buy some extra groceries so you can feed more people. So we got to a point where we were, between donations, both kitchens, and just buying stuff from Chicken Republic, we were feeding almost 3,000 people daily, which is a lot of people. And then we realized, some of the guys we were feeding, regular bike guys on the streets, they would come up and be like, you'd hear them talking and they'd be like, oh, this is the best I've eaten in months, you know, and you realize how many people are just so hungry. So when Black Tuesday happened and, you know, everybody was just really demoralized. But one of the things that the conversations that kept coming up was, listen, those guys that we were feeding are still hungry. Like, we're home and we're sad, but those guys we're feeding are still hungry. The group called the Food Coven came about from the protest as well. And I was working with them, so it's like they would be like, okay, you send 200 packs to Ikeja, can you send 200 packs to Alausa? Surulere needs 150 packs. Do you have 50 packs that you can take to Lekki Ikoyi? And it was just this really great network of basically decentralized soup kitchens that were provided for people. And I woke up one day and I think Jules had tweeted that it would be great if the food kept going. The Food Coven was like, oh, we wish we could still do this. My auntie called me like, oh, how do we keep feeding people? And that's basically like, it's like everybody woke up that morning and said, we need to do this. And that's basically how Feed Lagos came about. I put out a tweet and I said, I was talking to my roommates as well, and we're like, let's do this. Anyone who's interested should join. And I think right now we have a group of about 17 to 20 people, and everybody just simply, you know, donates their time and their expertise. So we have people doing our graphic design. We have people who did our website. The guys at Eat Drink Lagos, basically they're aggregating this, collecting donations and stuff like that. And the goal of Feed Lagos basically is, like I said earlier, is to set up a bunch of decentralized soup kitchens across Lagos with the capability to feed up to 1,000 people daily. Obviously, that is a really, really ambitious goal. So we're starting small, doing bi-weekly food drives. We have our first one coming up on November 28th. We're going to be in Itedo, which is in Lekki Phase 1, and we're feeding 1,400 people on that particular day. Now, FEED does stand for Feed, Educate, Empower, and Develop. So the hope is, as we go along, we can set up a thing that not just feeds people. I mean, food is necessary, but also educates them. The community we're starting in has a school that's currently, it's completely broken down. So they're teaching out of a church, and it's such a mess because you have all these almost 100 kids in this small space, and the teachers are yelling, and you know, the students aren't really, they're not getting the full benefits. So once we're done with the food drive, the plan is to see how much we can use to finish setting up the school, down the line, educate people about their choices politically, how to get your PVC, who you're voting for, and all those kind of things. But yeah, so we're starting definitely with the food because people are hungry, and it's very easy to judge and say, oh, people are voting for people based on rice. Well, if you haven't eaten a proper meal for 3 weeks, rice, you don't understand politics. Our politicians don't talk to us, but know what you understand food, you understand hunger. So the hope is that if we can get this going, then people can stop selling their votes for food because they're no longer starving. So yeah, that is Feed, and that's what we are doing.
Brilliant, that's great. And how, I guess I have two sort of questions. How do you think the diaspora can help? And what support can we give to Feed Lagos to help you guys out as well and keep planning?
So really the best way the diaspora can help Feed Lagos in particular, send us your Forex. The Naira is a useless currency. And I mean, these things need money to go along. Luckily, we crowdfunded for the first 4. So we have enough funds right now for the first 4 food drives. We were able to raise over 2 million Naira, and that's just from tweeting about wanting donations, which was really great. But to make this go on long term, we need significant financial, capital. So the best way to help is to go to our website, www.feedlagos.com, and donate money. We can accept all Forex. So yeah, that's great. Another thing that's super important that everybody has mentioned before me, and I need to mention again, is to tweet, retweet, Instagram. Don't let the conversation end, because this government, they like abroad, they like to travel. So the more international embarrassment they get, the better for us. A lot of these things that we're seeing them do, from the panels to their some will lose little speeches, is really all to save space. It's not, they don't particularly care. So the longer People are talking about it. And also it's given us a lot of energy. I know during the protest, I was out there every day. By the 7th day, I was exhausted. But there were so many people who were rooting for us. There were so many people who were reaching out. It was really great for us to have that support going forward. Now for Feed Lagos, we're building, I see somebody asking about structure. We're definitely building structure. And we're working with different companies. We understand that it's a massive goal and we can't do it all by ourselves. So we are working with different people to build relationships where if you do education, then you can come in for the education. So I started conversations with groups like Volunteer Corps, and all they do is they teach basic math, English, and computer skills. And so these are things that we want to take into these communities where they may not necessarily be able to access that sort of education. So basically we're building all those relationships. We've had a lot of companies reach out about sponsorship, about providing supplies and groceries, about providing, educational tools. So we're definitely working with a bunch of different people. 17 of us cannot do it alone. But yeah.
I can imagine, yeah, similar to how EndSARS is set up. But thank you so much for sharing, Imoteda. We really, really appreciate that. Thank you so much, everyone, to all of our panelists and to all of our audience members. We're so sorry that we've overrun, but I bet I'm not the only one that thinks this, but there's been so much amazing and practical information that has been shared this evening. So we're just very, very quickly going to go into our Q&A session. If you need to go, we totally understand, but it would be awesome for you to stay. So one of the questions that we have, and this is open to anyone in the panel, is how do we get a new set of young and intelligent and intellectual individuals in political positions, as it's been the same set of people that have been ruling us for decades? Does anyone on the panel want to unmute themselves and answer that? Just to repeat the question, how do we get, a new set of young and intelligent intellectual individuals in political positions in Nigeria? I may pick. Yeah, go on, Olamide.
Just jump in. Actually, the first answer that came to my mind was off the back of what Imotela said about people being too hungry to understand or to care about the abstractions of politics. I'm going to start off with that in the sense that within Nigeria, politics is a game that's seen as dirty, and a lot of our intellectuals and people that have value to bring to the table stay away from this game because it is dirty, and also because it's violent and there's many tactics used that someone that wants to maintain a good conscience wouldn't want to dabble into. But for example, we need creative thinking to be able to uproot these vested interests in our political scene. What Imoteda described, with the Feed initiative and the Feed campaign, is something that could be used to drive votes to the right political parties. If PDP and APC are sending around bags of rice to people to buy their votes with a bad intention, well, maybe we can play that game too and send around bags of rice to get votes and then govern them properly so that we will have to do this, in the next 4 years because governance would take care of these systemic problems. So I think, just thinking outside the box and thinking creatively and sometimes playing the games that vested interests already play might be one way to start thinking about it. I'll pause for now to give panelists the chance to also jump on this.
Thank you so much. Another question that I have here is it possible to get ourselves familiar with the Constitution or have a knowledgeable...
So before you move to the next one, I just want to say one sentence.
Yeah, go.
Yeah, just two things also to say, and I agree with a lot of things, but I think in the end, political power, and I think it's twofold. One is, we need to understand that political power is about political organization and mobilization, right? That's primarily what it is. And if that's what it is, then we also have to organize, right? So, and I think I tweeted about this some days ago, saying that some of the things that Murtada's team is doing is fantastic around that, right? So, for instance, and I'll tell you why it's fantastic. After the protest ended on the 20th of October,
I think we've lost Tola there. So I'm going to move on to, oh, 1 second. Hi, Tola. I think I've got you back. No?
All right,
No?
great,
Okay.
great. I'm here. Yeah. So I said after the process ended on the 20th,
Cool.
after the process ended on the 20th of October, right, and the curfews began in Lagos. One interesting thing happened, right? Arise TV goes to the street, is interviewing people on the street, and one thing you'll find out that was very interesting was that people who had, some of them were street urchins, people who didn't have jobs, who were just living on the street, and they were articulating very clearly the EndSARS message. You would see them on Arise TV saying things like, "Oh, we're not attacking anybody. We're just trying to say end police brutality." You hear all those kind of things. And what is impressive is that, so this was just 2 weeks of feeding and vote and political education, and that come to this point. So imagine we had a concerted effort around food banks, because the truth is, it's stomach infrastructure, like it's popularly called, right? Which is the politicians feeds you and then buys your vote. But what if we're backing up with that, right? What if we're also doing things around organizing and educating people, giving political education? What if we're doing things like getting people to every local government areas to educate? Like, so the point is, we've got to organize politically. The second thing I would say is, and I'm very careful to say this, we must fixate people on the journey, not the events, right? One of the reasons why people got so despaired at the exact point of the protest end was that we're so fixated on the event that we're thinking of the journey. So I think it's not going to be it might not be a 1 month journey, it might not be a 1 year journey, it might not be a 2 years journey, but we must fixate people on the journey, right? I tell them this is what we're going for and this is how we're getting there. So that when we have setbacks, people can expect those things and keep it going. And so if you can organize carefully around, and I think the EndSARS protest gives you a clear blueprint of what to do. People were micro-organizing, like I've never seen it before. In different states, people will be organizing, different people that don't know themselves, some popular, some not popular. In some states, you would have 6, 7, 8 different people organizing different micro protests, right, of all sorts. So if we can get people, if we can get a structure that supports people, that provides an infrastructure for that, for people to actually organize themselves, and then we create a system to ensure that people's motivation stay high, I think it will be incredible the kind of things we can do. And I think we also have to separate between the political organization and the civic organization, where some people are holding the government accountable over and over again, and some people are actually organizing for political power.
Thank you so much for that, Tola. Next, we have a question about the Constitution. I don't know if IO is still available, but of course, this is open to anyone. Is it possible to get ourselves familiar with the Constitution or have a knowledgeable organisation that teaches us our rights until such a time is amended? Tola and Olamide, I think this is kind of in you guys' remit, and I'll delete as well if you're still on the line. I'll repeat the question again. Is it possible to get ourselves familiar with the Constitution or have a knowledgeable organisation to teach us about our rights until the Constitution is amended?
Olam, did you want to go?
Yeah, I'll start off and hopefully get backed up by Tyler. I can't see Ayo in the room. He would have loved this question.
Yeah, I know.
I think, yeah, I think our mindset about educating ourselves about things like the Constitution has to change, in the sense that we live in a digitalized world where people spend all their data watching, YouTube or Snapchat, utilizing social media, whereas a lot of disinformation about constitutions, about the law, these are things that you can actually access on the same internet. And so I think people need to make a concerted or a conscious effort to educate themselves with information that's freely available on the web. Now, of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that such an education strategy would trickle down into many of the places in Nigeria that don't have access to internet. We tend to overlook these places. And so how to penetrate these places with the information that they need to know? Well, this is where Tola's contribution about a concerted effort, about a long-term strategy to penetrate these places and politically organize comes in. Education at the grassroots level isn't just only about vocational skills, it's also about letting people know more about their political rights and their freedoms and responsibilities as well. So yeah, I think we need to have a hybrid of online education. People should try to find information itself, but we need to inculcate an education strategy in our political organization. Sorry,
I think I only just had one or two things to that, right? Which is, I think a lot of people are already doing those kind of things. So there are guys like Enough is Enough. There's guys like Budget. There are a lot of guys already doing work around trying, maybe not in an encompassing legal way, but just more in the nuance. So for a Budget is doing that kind of sensitization from the financial type system. Enough is Enough is doing it from around the whole political activism. I know there's Fixed Politics, NG. I know that Gatefield TV also does a lot of those kind of civic type content. I know that Fowles, last time we also mentioned that he wants to start something of that sort. I've been reached out to also start something of that sort. So I think we'll see a lot of it in the and it's about demand and supply, right? The more there is a clear demand for that kind of content, the more people will put it out, one. But two is, beyond even that, it's that it becomes very important. I think the real issue is being able to domesticate that to fit the different audience. So I think, for instance, we should be thinking of things like Hausa versions of it, or beamed over the radio. We should be thinking of things like social media content. We should be thinking of things like pamphlets, materials. And I think one thing we have to do, which maybe I've had to learn in my career because I deal with businesses and countries a lot, is that we also have to distill the constitution into everyday type language, right? I find that lawyers get very much in love with the law, that we get all technical. But I think what you want to do is tell people in clear English, these are your powers, this is what you can do, and this is how you go about it. And I think we'll see a lot more of that in the coming days. Yeah, that's all.
Thank you. Thanks, Tola. If we wanted you to weigh in on this as well, and if you could shed a bit more light on how we can encourage people to vote as well, that would be awesome. And what we can do as well, and how to get people more educated, that would be wonderful. If you're there, can you hear me? No? Okay then. All right then, I'll just leave it there. Oh, no, I need to unmute you. Oh. Are you able to unmute? No? Okay. Okay, cool. I think we'll just leave it there. I'm seeing this.
Hi everyone, can you hear me?
But oh yeah, brilliant, perfect timing. Yeah.
Sorry guys, I've had to go to run an errand really quickly. But yes, in regards to the political participation, how to vote, as I've said before, for now the diaspora cannot we cannot vote from our domiciliary points in the diaspora, but you can come to Nigeria and actually register to vote. The registration to get your PVC will start in January and will end 6 months before election time. So we have a good 2 years or so to get our PVCs. So we have no excuses when election times come to actually vote. And actually, INEC, who's actually in charge of the voted electoral process, they've actually said that the chief commander has said that he will be, there's a 1 billion naira budget for this whole process of itself. The chairman that said that. So they recognize that people are more in tune with why they need to vote. So they'll be trying to educate people and synthesize more people to vote in the coming years. So with our Get Your PVC campaign, again, we're trying to mobilize a huge voters drive, especially for the youths in Nigeria, to vote, and not just vote, but like vote for people that represent you, vote for people that you know you can actually hold to account and are transparent. Vote for people that have actually, you've seen they've made efforts for things that young people are interested in. For example, those politicians that you've seen getting involved in the EndSARS protest. Personally, for me, I'll be looking out for people like that have actually been active in their civics duty, even when election time wasn't around. They've actually been putting the work in behind the scenes. They've been walking and talking and doing the do as well. So I'll be looking out for people like that to vote for in 2023. So yeah, so please do click on the link on the chat and register so you can volunteer for this voters drive campaign, and we can educate you more as well about diaspora voting, the constitution, how it affects you, how to pick your PVC, what is a PVC, what it entails, things like that. We're very, very big on trying to do for the next few years. So yeah, that's what I can say.
Thank you so much, Ife. And on that note, I'm going to bring the Q&A to a close. So thank you so much again, everyone, for joining. All of the links and organisations mentioned, we will be posting it up on our social media, so make sure that you keep your eyes peeled for that, as well as links to petitions and pre-written emails and letters and things like that to your local MPs as well. So yeah, everyone, please keep the conversation going. This is a great start. We have such a long way to go, but we know that through these conversations and networking and speaking to so many other people, that Nigeria can fulfill its potential and become the country that it's been called to be, especially with all of us in diaspora as well. I'd like to say a massive thank you again to all of our speakers and our panelists. Thank you so much for giving us your time and contributing, and again to everyone for tuning in, and the chats have been going and people have been networking, and it's been absolutely amazing. So don't forget to follow us on Instagram. We are EndSARS UK, EndSARS UK, and we are also on Twitter as well, the same handle, but I believe there's an underscore after that. And hopefully we'll speak to you all soon. Have a lovely evening. Thank you again, and yeah, speak to you soon. Bye.
Thanks for having us. Bye.
Bye, guys. Thank you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks, Iwasada. Thanks, Tola. Thanks. Bye. Thanks, Olamide. Bye. Thanks. Bye.